I've written about these issues in Sweden as one of the few that's written about it who's not an activist. And recently I wrote about how it coincides with autism diagnosis. So we have, and I think it's the same in the United States. And it's, I mean, the number of especially young women who's never had any doubts about their about their gender identity, but then they find like-minded people with problems connecting socially on the internet, and then all of a sudden they decide that I'm not a woman, I'm a man. Most of them have diagnosis within the autism spectrum, and to even say this and say that this is something we need to investigate is sort of transphobic, because then you're questioning the motives within the person. So you're basically saying that it's not, maybe it's not a gender identity you're feeling that's faulty, it's something else.
Well, but it's like it's going to be worse.
Then you're a transphobe.
Yeah, well, it's going to get worse because look, here's the logical fallacy. Not all transsexuals have mental illness.
Yeah.
But many people with mental illness are going to be confused about their identity. Right. So the pool of people confused about their identity is extraordinarily large. Now, if you produce a social fad, which is exactly what we're doing with gender transformation, then everyone who's unstable is going to gravitate very rapidly towards that fad. That's happened many times with different forms of pathology. So, for example, there's a book called The Discovery of the Unconscious by an existentialist psychotherapist named Henri Allenberger, which is a great book. And he tracks the cyclical recurrence of multiple personality disorder over the last 300 years. So a case will be reported after everyone forgets about it for a generation or two. A case will be reported, and then it spreads like wildfire, and there's multiple personality everywhere. And then people get skeptical about it, and the reports drop off to zero, and it goes underground again. And then 3 generations again, somebody reports a case history, and poof, up it comes again. And so there are these, and Carl Jung wrote about this a lot, there are these psychic epidemics that occur from time to time. And the same thing happened, for example, in the 1980s when there was a huge outcry in the United States, in particular, about satanic ritual abuse in daycares. And that produced an absolute uproar for like 5 years. And many, did you have that?
Yeah, one of the professors here in Uppsala, at Uppsala University, she wrote a book about, and most of men of power were in on it in a conspiracy.
Right.
And even though it was, I mean, it's blatantly, it's crazy.
Yep.
But he was a gender scientist.
Yeah.
So,
well, there was a great book called,
because he was criticized, it was sort of, she is actually one of the architects behind our how we view men's violence against women. But she also wrote about these satanic rituals that men in power had against children. But it wasn't in daycare, it was just like against children everywhere.
Yeah. Well, there's a great book written in the United States called Satan's Silence by a social worker and a lawyer that investigated that satanic ritual abuse epidemic. And it makes the Salem witch hunts look like nothing. I mean, the longest prison sentences in history were handed out for the hypothetical perpetrators of these satanic ritual abuse. They dug under whole towns in places looking for the tunnels where the sacrifices were being performed. I mean, they invented whole new categories of clinical diagnosis. Late onset female sexual predator, of whom there are 0, right? That is a category that does not exist. Unbelievable.
It sounds like a great book. I mean, like a great horror movie or something, like these satanic circles. But to actually believe in it, it's really crazy.
Yep.